Bagley.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Melton.
Here.
Palermo.
Here.
Rowe.
Here.
Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remarks by Councilmember Harding.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Maybe inspired by the Olympic Games, I'm reminded of a Winston Churchill quote that goes something like this: "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts." Thank you.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
Welcome to the Omaha City Council. We thank you for being here and look forward to your testimony today. For the sake of others and for the sake of the meeting, please put your cell phones on off or at least to vibrate.
Items 6 through 9 can be considered together for South Farm Replat 2, located southwest of 144th and Pacific Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 6 and 7 are ordinances to rezone this property from R4 District and MU District to R4 District and MU District. Item 8 is a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 9, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote are today on items 6, 7, 8, and 9. The applicant, please.
Yes, my name is Joe Flaxbeard, 14710 West Dodge Road, here on behalf of the applicant. Really here to answer any questions. This was a minor plat. The preliminary plat for this has already been before you. This is really just adjusting the right-of-ways and lots to match the paving that has been approved by Public Works and being constructed. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Are there any proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 6 through 9 are approved, 7-0. Items 10 through 15 can be considered together for 77th and Dodge, located south of 77th and Dodge Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 10 through 12 are ordinances to rezone this property from GC District and GI District to CC District, GC District, and GI District. Items 13 and 14 are resolutions to approve the revised preliminary plat and final plat. Item 15, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Thank you. Public hearing and vote on items number 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 are today. We'll hear from the applicant first.
Hello, John Coolidge with Lamprey Nearson. I'll see if I can be even shorter than my colleague, Joe Flaxbeard, here, and just say I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you just did. Are there any proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
Here. Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 10 through 15 are approved, 7-0. Item 16, an ordinance to rezone property located at 3201-3221 Corby Street from R535 District to R5 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote are today on number 16. Is the applicant here? Any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents?
Yes.
No proponents or opponents on 16, right?
What was that address again?
It's 3201 Corby Street, number 16. Okay. I'll close public hearing. Ms. Johnson.
I move that we approve this agenda item.
I'll second. Roll call.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed, 7-0. Item 17, an ordinance to rezone property located at 4615 Davenport Street from R4 District to R5 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 17 is today. I believe we have the applicant by Zoom, Mr. Albers. Take you off mute here in a second. There we go. I think we got it there, Chad. Can you hear us?
Hi.
Oh,
Hi, this is his wife, and I'm just supposed to sit here, and he just told me to sit here and wait. Watch
All
him,
right.
so.
Here to answer questions, right?
I don't know about that, but he just told me he's at work, so he's like, can you just sit in on this? So.
All right. Thanks for being with us. I do know Mr. Alvers, and I'll have to tease him later.
Okay, well, good.
All right. Are there any proponents on number 17 that want to speak today? I'll ask her in a minute. Seeing no proponents, any opponents on number 17? Please come down.
I'll try and keep with the being a brief. My name's Charles Chatham. I live at 4611 Davenport Street, so directly east. Those two properties share a structure and a very loosely arranged driveway. In rezoning that space, it doesn't allow for a garage to be erected, so it kind of forces a garage to be there. And because it's kind of a loosely arranged agreement, there's no way to move forward with to come to a remedy of how to resolve that garage issue to date. I've tried to resolve it with the previous homeowner and the current homeowner, and both said we need to tear it down, up until the point where we were talking about rezoning it, because if it's rezoned, there's not going to be the ability to actually put into the garage on that property, unless it's the one that's on my property. To that end, if it's rezoned, now I preface this being a layperson trying to interpret the city ordinances, but my understanding is that we are supposed to have no more than 50 to 55% of the actual land covered by structure and or garage or concrete. And if it's rezoned, it's going to be close to like 75% just straight concrete and structure on that particular lot. So those are two concerns that I have with this rezoning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other opponents today? Yep.
Good afternoon. My name is Charles Johanningsmeyer. I'm a neighbor from up the street, concerned neighbor from Mr. Begley's district.
And your address, please?
Sorry?
And your address, please?
4631 Davenport Street.
Thank you.
Sorry. I'm very concerned about this rezoning for a number of reasons. One is I have recently experienced the effects of the rezoning directly behind my property across the alley. When it is rezoned, this is going to allow for multiple family dwellings. And what has arisen directly behind my property is a 3-story large monstrosity that does not fit in the neighborhood, is changing the character of the neighborhood. That's the second one that has gone up in the past few years. These are also greatly changing the character of the neighborhood. The units, 2 units on one of these lots, right? And one of these will go in, I'm sure of it, if this is allowed to happen at the other address. What has happened is it's 2 units, each selling for $539,000. This is no longer a middle-class neighborhood of affordable housing for people who want to, say, be close to public transport. I take the bus often to work. I work at UNO. Also, I'm very concerned, and so in terms of what that's going to do for our street, I think it's going to be out of character. It's going to change why people want to live in that neighborhood. We welcomed the Duke, most of us. It was on vacant property. It was wonderful development. It brought a lot to the tax rolls, which, you know, is something obviously we have to be concerned about. This is not really vacant property. It seems like it is, but it's not much open property. I could see, for instance, allowing it to be subdivided into 2 lots if it were not rezoned to, what is it, R5. If they were single-family, smaller dwellings, okay, I could go with that. I may not be in accord with all my neighbors on that. I don't have to live right next to it. But what I'm concerned about is that this is going to be a 2, 3, 4-story building that will change everything. The other thing we've noticed in the neighborhood since the Duke went up is that despite seemingly a lot of on-site parking at the Duke, all of a sudden, our street is packed with parked cars all the time, a lot more street noise at night, and I know it might seem as if one more property, going in there is not going to change the parking situation and the feel of the neighborhood at night and on weekends. But what I'm concerned about is a little bit of the slippery slope, that we start allowing these subdivisions for developers to put in new properties in every spare piece of footage in that area, and all of a sudden it changes the feel. It's very urban. The people who live there are going to get crowded out. I speak, I think, for some of my other neighbors that, if we have too much more development in there, then it's not the neighborhood we wanted to live in. We wanted to live in a mixed neighborhood, small houses, very convivial place where you can walk to Dundee, we can walk over to Dodge Street, I can get to public transport. But all of a sudden it's becoming an urban area. And I really would appeal to you to reconsider this. Again, in my opinion, if it were just allowed to divide into 2 lots and there were small single-family homes there, that I could live with. But I'm very concerned that that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is we're going to have a high-rise, not 20 stories, but it's going to be 3, 4 stories. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Other opponents?
Brought some pictures I'd like to hand you guys. This is the monstrosity that Chuck is referring to that's behind us. Could I just hand them to her? There you go.
And then just your name and address for the
Yes.
record there.
Hello, my name is Rod Hamlin. I live at 4623 Davenport Street. I am directly to the west of Mr. Albert's place. I will be greatly put out by this property being changed. I mean, I moved into Dundee 35 years ago, and we bought this house 27 years ago. Sorry. I've never done this before.
Doing fine.
I spoke to most of the neighbors on the block. We're all against this. Chuck said something about parking. Our street is nothing but cars at the top of the hill from the AA house all the way down to the Duke. I, on the other hand, was opposed to the Duke. I could sit out in my front yard and I can see Cathedral. I could see the eastern skyline. Now that's taken away from me. Mr. Alvers, I talked to him. He plans on putting a rental property in that place. He told me that's what he's going to do. And that is going to be 5 feet off of my driveway. I have 1 foot in my driveway of my property to the east, and the rest is his place. They've already staked it out, and the house that's there now has concrete in the yard, and that's already going on to the lot that's there now. It's already in violation of the second lot if he changes it over. Currently, we have 4 apartment buildings on the street. The AA house at the top of the hill. The traffic is horrendous down this street. Kids do not play outside anymore due to the traffic. Obviously, I mentioned the Duke here. As you can see, the pictures of that, that's what got built behind our houses. That was approved. So, I mean, to me, that says if this goes to R5, that means Mr. Alvers could put that right next to my house. Now, I know none of you would want that next to your house. I mean, look at that thing. Dundee is an old neighborhood of historic houses. This house has stood the same way for 110 years. 110 years. Every house in Dundee was built in the 1900s, and that's the way we want to leave it. I have a note from one of the neighbors here. We are an owner of 4702 Davenport Street. We are against having any other property being built on this block. Part of Dundee charm is the history of the homes. if we start letting anyone build in lots, it won't make any difference than any other neighborhood in Omaha. We already are numerous apartments and rental homes along this block, and with this bringing neighbors who don't care about the homes the way the homeowners do. I'm sorry, I lost my place here. Recently, a block south, there was a high-rise condo being built that now casts shadow over all our homes. In the same family for, in homes that have been in the same houses for over 20 years, they lived in these houses. If you let one, you'll have to let everyone. It's a domino effect on the neighborhood. This is Alex and Megan Freed. They live on the corner of 47th and Davenport. I come here today to tell you this is not the right place to do this. It's a beautiful green large yard with nice trees. This is all going to go away. So I thank you for hearing me today, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other opponents today?
Larry Storr, 5115 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska, also from Dundee area. I'm against this because I live in a close by area, and the multiple density living is already occurring on Lafayette between 50th and 51st, where 5 or 6 people, unrelated maybe, probably, are renting what used to be a single-family home right on the corner of 50th and Lafayette. Has created a lot of traffic problems. My block is one-way parking on the street only, but 1 block west of me, they park on both sides. All kinds of delivery trucks coming up and down the street now, interfering with traffic, but there's very little parking for the residents that have been there for 70 years, like myself. And I fear that this is the camel's nose under the tent, where if we let this continue, it will become a de facto law, part of the low-income housing, affordable housing passed by Obama and being carried out by a lot of other politicians to, maybe rightfully so, provide lower income housing in established areas. But you better think of one thing. The more you do of that, the less property tax values you are going to get, because you're going to have to lower my valuations to probably equate with those, except, oh my gosh, most of those people will be renters. So I'd like you to vote against it.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, I'm not going to close the public hearing yet. I do want to give Mr. Alvarez, who I think is now with us by Zoom, a chance to present his case or respond to the opposition we heard today. We'll see if we can unmute you here in a minute. How's that? Do we have you now?
This is Chad Alvers, the owner.
Thanks, Chad. Can you give your address, please?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
The address of the property is 4615 Davenport Street.
Okay. And I don't know if you had a chance to hear some of the concerns being presented, but if you'd like to address those, that might be helpful.
You know, I did not, unfortunately. I am at my job right now, so I just tried to get in and hear everything through my phone. My wife is on a Zoom at home on the computer, so she was going to speak for me, but I didn't know that I could actually speak through the phone, so I'm just taking a break from work. Basically, I'm sure the neighbors, I heard the last neighbor to the west talk a little bit. That's about all I heard when I got on. Our intentions with what we're doing with this property is we purchased this about 6 months ago with the intention of fixing it up. And I heard some of the neighbors kind of talk about low-income housing, and I heard some of them talk about big monstrosities and threeplexes and things like that. All I can tell you right now is we have no plans to do anything with the lot at this time. Eventually, yes, we would like to build something on it. I think the infill in these areas is very, very important to keep these areas growing and to keep people in them. We bought this property. We're fixing both. We've taken care of the lawn. We think everything around this whole lot and property, and I don't think the neighbors could argue with me, looks 100% better than it did. When we purchased it, it was in very disrepair. This lot right now, the neighbor is complaining about the stakes where they're at. We called a survey company to stake it out, and I understand it's very close to his property, but he should have known that. That's his property. He should know his property line and where his property is. So when somebody, you know, goes and spends $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 on something, you probably kind of need to know what you're buying and where your property line is. So I'm really surprised he didn't know where his property line was. So that is where the property line will stay. If we do or don't build something, then this lot will just sit green space and the trees will overhang and nothing will ever go there and nobody will ever use it. And I think there's a lot of people that like to move into these areas, and yes, it is getting very expensive in these areas. But there's a lot of people that would like to move into these areas, and there's a very shortage of housing in these areas. Ask any realtor, anybody out there, it's really hard to get into these areas. So we would like to build something in there eventually. I don't know what it would be. But as far as the neighbor to the west, yeah, that's going to take away his vacant lot that he's been able to enjoy for all these years. It was not his lot. He knew the property line, I'm sure. So now we just would like to do something with it and give other people a chance to move into the area. And we're not going to build something that doesn't fit the area. We're going to follow all the local zoning and codes and build something that fits the Dundee area. I live in the Dundee area. I want to keep the Dundee area. I've lived here all my life. I'm 50 years old, and I've lived here all my life. And I lived in 3 or 4 different houses in this area. I care about the area. So I'm not going to do anything to devalue the area or upset the neighbors. So, I mean, the last thing I want to do is upset the neighbors in this area. But I feel by me buying this property, I'm surprised the neighbors aren't even already happy with me by what we're doing with this other I mean, it already looks 10 times better than it did. So, but again, I don't want to upset the neighbors, but again, I think infill is good in these areas, and we would like to put something nice there that somebody else can enjoy. We're not going to encroach on his property or anybody's property. We're not going to, you know, have anything built that wouldn't really fit the area. You know, as far as that, that's really all I've got to say. I just feel it's my property. I should be able to do what I want to do with my property. Now, I do understand people moved into the Dundee area because they like the old Dundee homes and this and that, but there is the Dundee area also consists of a lot of multifamily. It also consists of a lot of apartments and conversions. That is part of these urban dense areas. It's not just single family homes. So people that say they moved into the Dundee area just because they love the nice, just single family homes, well, they should have really maybe done some research and realized where they moved, because there's tons of apartments in this area and condos. And you drive down any of those streets right to the west of me, they're all over the place. You go right to the east of my lot and you've got the Duke, which is massive, massive property. And I know they only built, that's only 4 stories high because that's all you can actually build. But there's apartments all over the place in the area. Ours, if we build something there, would be very small. It's probably going to be a single family home. It might be a duplex. It just depends on what the city would allow us to do. But I feel the Dundee area needs to get these lots infilled. And, you know, if you drive around all the vacant lots in the Dundee area, they look terrible. They're never mowed. They're weeds. There are safety issues. Kids run through them and go play in them. There's trees that are rotted and deteriorated because most people that own those lots aren't going to put any money into them and keep them up because it's a vacant lot and it's not a money property. It's not making any money. So with this lot here, even if you guys decide that I cannot do anything with it, I'm still going to keep the lot up and make it look very, very nice. But I do think for the Dundee area, it would be a absolute advantage to have some of these lots have something built in these and just turn them into like the other metropolitan areas around the country. I mean, if any of these neighbors have gone out and visited other metropolitan areas from Minneapolis to Denver to Kansas City, these dense areas like the Blackstone over to the southeast of us, it's beautiful what they're doing over there. And it brings so many jobs and it just brings more people in the area. By bringing more people in this area, you're going to get more people to use the bus, more people to ride their bikes around. I just think this area is the area to do it in.
Okay.
So I'm sorry if I'm upsetting neighbors by doing this, but thank you again for your time.
Okay. Thanks, Chad. We do, hang tight, we do have some council members with their lights on. I believe this is in Councilmember Begley's district, and we may have some questions for the planning department too, seeing as this went through the planning board. With that, I'll recognize Councilmember Melton.
I think it would be good to figure out, we're going from, if I could have somebody from planning.
Mike Carter, Planning Department.
Thank you, Mike. And this might be a good time. I might just want a little refresher course. Obviously, when I read the agenda, I didn't anticipate that this was going to even be an issue on a single family, because we're going from just R4 35 to R5.
Right.
Can you tell me the difference between R4 35 and R5?
Well, it's really the R4 and the R5 are the difference. The 35 just signifies a front yard setback. So really, the R5 and the R4 is the main difference. And essentially, what R5 would potentially allow would be a duplex versus R4 would allow single family. Now, there are some other regulations that go along with what R5 would allow that still would have to be complied with, regardless if it's single family or duplex. So there's lot sizes, impervious coverage, setbacks, all that kind of stuff that would have to be complied with for somebody to want to build a separate house on that vacant land. The property would have to be subdivided into 2 separate lots. I mean, all that would still have to be done. But essentially, the R5 would, in theory, allow a duplex. It would not allow multifamily. Multifamily is not allowed in R5.
Okay, multifamily is not allowed.
No.
So a duplex, so we couldn't do the triplex, and I'm not sure if you saw the photo. I'm going to hand this to you.
Yeah, it might be helpful to put that on the screen there so we can all see it.
I mean, I guess just by looking, I think he's talking about the one that's sticking up above over this. Oop, there we go. I'm assuming he's talking about this.
Yes, can you confirm that if we go to an R5, that something like that would not be allowed to be built on this lot?
Well, all I can say is that you'd have to comply with what R5 allows. And R5 has the same height limitations that R4 has, still 35 feet. You can't go any taller than
35
that.
feet?
Yep, 35 feet max.
So but that building, that circle, that has to be higher than 35.
That, I mean, I don't.
I know and I've seen it. I can't imagine that that's below 35, but.
It's hard to tell. I don't know what the zoning, that's a little bit farther south, I believe.
Well, and I think, is
closer
that
to
an
Dodge.
R7 zone?
R7 obviously would allow a taller building.
Because there is, and so when I look at on the attachment, they have the subject area and then they have the surrounding zoning.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like across the street, it's all R4 35. Then at the end of the block, you just have random R4, like one lot's R5, one lot's R4.
Mm-hmm.
Across the street, you have R4, then you have across the street R7, and then next to it an R4, and then next to that an R5. It just seems very random.
I think it's getting a little closer to Dodge, and you have a little bit more of the higher density zoning once you go further south. To the north, I mean, to some degree, there is some mixed zoning in the Dundee area. It has sort of the feel of different types of residential options as far as single-family duplexes, multifamily. So there is sort of a mix in the whole area. But as far as what's proposed here, would go to R5, doesn't allow multifamily.
Okay, and they can't go over the 35 feet, which under R4 they can't. I mean,
Right.
that's the same height.
Right.
The height is the same in
Right,
the
the height
current
max
zoning.
is the same in both R4 and R5.
Okay. And so under this, most likely, you wouldn't be able to do anything other than a duplex.
Right, I mean, he would have to meet, there's larger lot requirements for R5 for a duplex versus R4 for single family. So I guess, I mean, not knowing all the specifics of what his lot configuration is and what space he has to make lots, chances are he's probably going to only be able to do 2 single-family homes, the existing one and a new one. I don't know if he has enough room to do a duplex lot. That has to be a wider lot to do that.
Okay.
So, but
Well, because what we're hearing from the neighbors, that's why I put this picture up, was they're concerned that, this large, what looks like it's higher than 35 feet could be built right in the middle of their single-family residences. And
Right.
what you're saying is the chances of that would be very slim based upon the setbacks required and everything else required.
Well, yeah, they would have to, we wouldn't approve something like that. They would, in theory, if they wanted to do that, they'd have to go to the zoning board and ask for a waiver and go through that process. So there's a process to do it, but just as far as what R5 allows, it does limit to the 35 feet.
Okay, so so then that would be another opportunity, and the neighbors would be notified, the same neighbors that were notified here, if they were gonna try and get a waiver, and that would
Right.
be a lot more difficult to do.
We
I would think.
typically wouldn't support waivers, but ultimately, that's a process that they would go through the public hearing and the zoning board of appeals.
Because I think that's important for the neighbors to know, because it sounds to me like a lot of the objection is the uncertainty of what may be built. Obviously, there's not going to be an objection to single-family homes. And so at least that's what I was hearing from the opponents. And that's what I wanted to make sure I knew what the difference between the R4 and the R5. We haven't talked about it for a while.
Yeah, essentially, the R5 has been referred to as a duplex zoning classification.
Okay.
Where single family is the R4 single family district. So that's probably the biggest difference.
Okay. And so this change in zoning is not, in your opinion, is not inconsistent with the surrounding area?
Nope, and it's consistent with the master plan. So it's something we supported and the planning board recommended approval of.
Okay. Thank you. I think I think I got my questions answered.
Thank you. Councilman Harding, you're recognized.
One other thing, just make sure everyone knows that it's still, also R5 is still considered low density.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
I just
low
wanted to make
density.
sure we had that on the record too. Thank you.
Councilman Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to lay this over just so I can make sure I'm crystal clear with planning. I saw the recommendation and I read in our agenda, but I'd like to lay this over if we can. Would it be till August 10th?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to do that.
I second.
Motion and a second to delay to August 10th. I think that was a good review of the zoning ordinances there and what can and cannot happen here, but I think there is some miscommunication here happening with surrounding neighbors that could benefit probably for some more conversation, so I'll support that delay. Councilman Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a little delay there. I understand that the motion's been made, or the request has been made. There's a motion and a second. I would like to also note that when this went through planning board, it was on the consent agenda, received no opposition at that point. In my estimation, I think with Mr. Albert's description of what his intentions are and what he by right could do according to the zoning, and with Mr. Carter's explanation as to what would be allowed, I mean, I would be completely satisfied with making a motion to approve, but understand that that the motion on the table right now is for layover. But in my estimation, I think it's been clarified. Thank you.
Thank you. No further lights. Motion is second. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson.
Yes.
Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 18, an ordinance to rezone property located at 7516 Glenvale Drive from R2 District to R5 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on vote on number 18 is today. We have the applicant by Zoom. You're off mute. You want to name and address, please?
Yeah, Matthew Moragas, 7516 Glenvale Drive.
Here to answer questions?
Omaha. Yep. Just here to answer questions.
Thank you. Any proponents for number 18? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Second. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 19, an ordinance to rezone property located at 7219 Graceland Avenue from R8 District to GO District. and Geo District to R4 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 19 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Second, roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 19 is approved, 7-0. Item 20, an ordinance to rezone property located at 2414 Valley Street from GI District to R7 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 20 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 20 is approved, 7-0. Item 21, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC district to incorporate into that district the property located northwest of 33rd Street and Edward Babe Gomez Avenue. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 21 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 21 is approved, 7-0. Items 22 and 23 can be considered together for property located at 524 Park Avenue and 518, 522, and 526 South 30th Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. B is communication in opposition. Item 22, an ordinance to approve a PUR overlay district in the R8 district for this location. Item 23, an ordinance to adopt a PK overlay district in an R8 district.
Public hearing and vote on numbers 22 and 23 are today. The applicant, please.
I'm Kyle Hazy with E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, Omaha, Nebraska, representing the applicant. Along with myself, Stephen Held, the applicant is in the audience as well to make himself available for any questions that I might not be able to answer. As mentioned, there's two different lots in front of us today. Lot 1 and Lot 2 off of Park Avenue and 30th Street. They run together as one project. Currently, both of these lots are zoned R8 with an ACI overlay. On Lot 1, we are looking to add the PK overlay, and on Lot 2, a PUR overlay. Currently, both of these lots are vacant and have been vacant for multiple years. We are proposing a multifamily building on Lot 2 with the parking on Lot 1. Thus the PK overlay, still maintaining the R8 residential zoning on both lots. These building would be a mix of efficiency apartments and one-bedroom apartments. We have met with the city multiple times on this. We have met their requirements to move forward with the project. And with that, I guess we've got some elevations too. Of the building, of the proposed building. Along with the building, there would be a nice forecourt that goes in front of the building along Park. Setbacks for this building matches the setbacks for the adjacent residences at all, as well. With that, I'll make myself available for any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Please.
No, pro, you said?
Proponent.
No.
All right. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
I own, my name's Tom Coley. I own property on Park Ave in Harney. I also own property on 30th and Dewey, very close.
And your address, please.
And I'm
Sir,
looking at this for the first time.
Sir, your address, please. We need your address.
3002 Dewey, 2951 Harney, 2965 Harney, 2963 Harney.
Thank you.
and Harney Street just lost probably, I don't know, probably 65% of the parking with the bike paths. And that just happened, and I really wasn't even aware of it as a business owner when they came in and just totally changed Harney Street. They said, didn't we tell you? They didn't. But anyway, Harney lost 50–60% of the parking stalls with the bike path going on all the way down Harney Street. And there's a problem with that. I have a duplex, and I have parking on all my duplexes. I have spots for all my renters. And I also bought a house next to 300 Dewey. I tore it down and put a parking lot because parking's such a problem. On this, I think there's going to be 44 units in there, and that the parking stall you did looks really nice. I'd like to know how many cars that holds.
I'm going to have you address the council. Address your remarks to us, please.
Pardon?
You have to address your remarks to us, not to the...
I'm sorry. It's my first rodeo here.
You're doing okay.
But I didn't look at these plans at all, but I would like to, on my piece of paper says they have like 44 multifamily units going in, and it looks really nice. I can tell they, did their homework on this. But I'm just really concerned about parking. I've had property there. Our business is 102 years old. I'm fourth generation. My kids work with fifth generation. I know the area very well. And my only concern is parking. I think what they're doing is converting the area, and I think everything is looking nicer. The time and money, what they're putting in. But my question to you is, if this 44 units, how many parking stalls? Because it's a mess. Parking is an absolute mess, and snow plows down that street. It's. I wish I had pictures for you, but in the wintertime, it's just absolutely hell. There's no place to snow, no place to park.
Sure.
So that's my concern.
We'll ask that question for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other opponents today? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Hazy, would you like to answer the concern about parking?
Yes, we have 43 total units, as I mentioned, a mix of the efficiency and studios, and we provide a total of 46 parking stalls for those. 46 parking stalls. 46.
Thank you. Any lights, or is there a motion? I'll make a motion to approve. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Items 22 and 23 are approved 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 24, a resolution to approve a special use permit to allow a broadcast tower in the R3 district with approval of a waiver to section 55-166 height to allow a 90-foot tower located at 1031 Sunset Trail. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 24 is today. The applicant, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Ward, 15 Park Place, Swansea, Illinois, representing New Singular Wireless, or AT&T Mobility. This is an application for a 90-foot stealth communication structure to be disguised as a bell tower. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. This is in my district. I may have a few for you, but let me finish the public hearing here. Any proponents on number 24? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Ward, if I could, a few questions pertaining to the location here. So it is a special use permit we're considering here today, and I think we'll probably have some conversation about what that means compared to some other things we've been having to explore even just this morning with other what are called small cell towers. But this is different in that it's a regular tower, and that's why it does cause the special use permit process through Planning Board and now City Council. I just wanted to confirm with you, though, that do you have any pictures with you can show in terms of what the finished product?
I do not. It looks like a bell tower. It'll be completely surrounded with a fence and the equipment behind the fence. The antennas are placed behind stealth panels, so the antennas would be invisible to view.
So I have seen the picture that's included in the paperwork. Are you committing to that being what will actually get built?
Yes, that's the preliminary plans from Stealth Technologies, who's the manufacturer. We've sent a Sherwin-Williams paint wheel over to the church to let them select the colors that best match the church, and they've made that selection. But yeah, that's what it would look like. There's one similar to it. It's about 10, 11 years old over at the Cornerstone Church in La Vista.
Okay. And so from the photos, it is on the back side of the property, so the eastern corner of the church, and it has some brick facade, and it does look like a bell tower. You cannot tell it's a cell phone tower, right?
That is true.
Is it a functional bell or just by design?
It is not a functional bell. They could attach speakers that would sound like bells to the tower if they would choose.
Okay. So no noise implications either?
No.
All right. And at the base, is there shielding or fencing or shrubbery around that? How do they seal that off?
We'd have both. We'd have a vinyl fence that would surround the site. Our equipment would be behind that fence. Then we'll have some landscaping in front of the fencing.
Okay. I think most in the area would probably agree they need better cell phone service than they have, but they're also quite concerned with the appearance. So I'm glad you're committing to do those things on the record here today.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President, and I appreciate your comments that we had this morning as well as today that the small cell tower that we're dealing with is separate from you. There's distinctions on that. So that was a Verizon one. This is AT&T. But again, those are good comments you made that also as well as this morning. So we'll work through the issue on the 55th and Poppleton and other areas. But I got a good education the last couple weeks, and I got one this morning as well on this one. There's a distinction between the two, so thank you, Mr. President.
And I would just add to those remarks, Councilman Bagley has met with the law department this morning and is looking into that issue and that process, which is separate from this particular issue we're talking about here today, and does have some limitations around it as it applies to FCC regulations and laws and what cities can do. But nonetheless, very concerning when you have an issue that defies common sense, like on Poppleton Street, with a small cell tower in the middle of a sidewalk. So that's something we're going to look into and hope we can better address for our neighborhoods.
One other comment to that, I'm really happy that you're not putting this in the middle of a sidewalk. That's very encouraging, so.
Well, thank you. And you mentioned Verizon and small cells. I have nothing to do with that.
Right.
But if you ever need input from AT&T, please let me know. I can have the proper people come in and give their input if you have any questions or discussions about 5G plans.
That's encouraging as well to have communication companies communicating. That's important. Thank you.
We do try.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think we'll take you up on that because we are having that conversation as we speak.
Just let me know.
Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
I move that we accept, we have to have, thank you. Councilmember Melton, appreciate that.
Did I not call something? Public hearing's 11. I believe I called for that already and it's closed, yeah. So
All right, so I move that, to approve agenda item number 24.
Second. Roll call.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 24 is approved, 7-0.
Thanks.
Item 25, to consider a Class C KG liquor license for Backswing Brewing Company located at 3669 North 129th Street.
Public hearing and vote are on number 25 is today. I think we have the applicant by Zoom, Mr. Walker.
Yes, I'm here.
Your name and address, please.
Thomas Walker, 4810 North 133rd Plaza, Omaha, Nebraska 68164.
And just here to answer questions, right?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Any proponents on number 25? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 29 is approved, 7-0. Item 26, to consider a Class C liquor license for Bohemian Gardens located at 1424 South 13th Street.
Public hearing on vote and on number 26 is today. The applicant, please.
Good afternoon. Michael Leon with Mr. Jeff Pappas, who is the manager of this kind of exciting development. I thought I'd be here alone. He's been in the hospital all night. He just had a baby girl, so but he did show up. So if you have any questions about this development, he's here to answer them.
Thank you. And Mr. Leon, your address too?
2804 South 87th Avenue.
Thank you. Any proponents today on number 26? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Bagley.
Briefly, I had a real enjoyable time last Saturday down at Little Bohemia on 13th and William there, and it really is incredible to see what's transpiring down there and the commitment the neighbors got to those establishments. So I wish you nothing but the best with this. Thank you.
Is that a motion?
I'm sorry, and I would like to make a motion to approve. Thank you.
Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 26 is approved, 7-0. Item 27, to consider a Class CK liquor license for Wine Styles located at 1006 South 74th Plaza.
Public hearing and vote on number 27 is today. The applicant, please.
My name's Ada Rogers, 1006 South 74th Plaza, Omaha 68114.
Thank you. Are there any proponents on number 27? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 27 is approved, 7-0. Item 28, to consider a Class D liquor license for Downtown Food Mart located at 318 South 16th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 28 is today. The applicant.
Michael Polk, 2712 South 87th Avenue, Omaha 68124, here with the owner, Shumet Ababy, to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 28 is approved, 7-0. Item 29, to consider a Class K liquor license for Smokin' Oak Woodfire Pizza and Craft located at 220 South 31st Avenue, Suite 3103.
Public hearing and vote on number 29 is today. Any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 29 is approved, 7-0. Item 30, to consider a change of location application for Proof Whiskey Bar and Craft Cocktails to relocate to 200 South 31st Avenue, Suite 4102.
Public hearing and vote on number 30 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Joel Lavelle, Proof Whiskey Bar, 1722 North 206th Street.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 30 is
Thank you.
approved,
Good
7-0. Item 31, to consider an addition application for Joslin Castle located at 3902 Davenport Street to add a third floor, basement area, and outdoor area.
Public hearing and vote on number 31 is today. I think we have the applicant by Zoom.
No.
Are you here? Okay, great. Thank you. Name and address, please.
Judy Alderman, rental coordinator, Joslin Castle, 3902 Davenport. I just have a brief statement and then I'll answer any questions. Joslin Castle was granted a Class I liquor license about 9 years ago, and that license covered just the first and second floors, and at that time that seemed sufficient. But since then, we've begun to offer more outdoor programs, roughly 7 or 8 a year, and each time we've purchased an SDL in order to do that. Additionally, in recent years, we've begun offering more indoor programs that take attendees to the third floor and the basement, which are not currently covered by our liquor license. And since guests tend to carry their drinks sometimes to those floors, we just think it's appropriate to have all the floors covered. For these reasons, we're requesting that the third floor and the basement be added to our liquor license, as well as the grounds. Since we've obtained our original liquor license, there have been no issues or complaints or concerns with any of our events, either inside or outside where alcohol is served. So we ask that you approve this expansion, and I will answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing's closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Alderman, can I, if I may? So the outdoor events that you're going to have with live music, do you have a cutoff time that you're looking to stop that music at?
Yes, we stop by 9:30, and that's
9:30.
also the cutoff time for alcohol.
Okay. I appreciate that, and I know I heard from a couple of the neighborhood folks, but you have a commitment. You also have security as well on the
Yes.
grounds. Can you just briefly touch on that?
Yes, for all of our rental events, we hire one security guard for every 75 attendees. We have two entrances that are mostly footpaths that we block off, and security is posted at the driveway that leads into the parking lot, so anyone who comes in who is not part of the event or the rental event or whatever it is not allowed in. So we have ample security. And then for our own programs, we hire security anytime we have 100 guests or more.
Okay, thank you for that. And also, my last question is, as a kid, we used to ride our bikes in there. The parking lot, I believe, on the east side of the property, how many car spaces are available there?
We have almost 100 spaces total. And we've never had a problem, as far as I know, with not having enough parking, because most of our programs are 100 people or less, and most of our rentals are 100 people or less.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
With that, I would like to make a motion to permit the applicant, if they amend the application to confirm in there that music outdoors will end at 9:30, I would make a motion to support that and approve.
And is that something you're agreeable to? Do you want to, just for the record, confirm that? Yeah.
So what was your question again?
That I would move to support this if you make the stipulation that you would amend the application to reflect that you're going to have the live outdoor music ending at 9:30 p.m.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Then that, again, that's my motion to support that, Mr. President.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Okay, and this is a vote on the amendment. So Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
And you need as amended, correct?
Yes.
As amended, Mr. Bagley?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Roll call.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Items 32 through 35 can be considered together for special designated liquor licenses for Dundee Days on Underwood Avenue from 50th Street to 51st Street on August 21st from 7 a.m. to midnight, with music ending at midnight.
Public hearing and vote on items number 32 through 35 are today. We have several proponents by Zoom. I'll start with Ms. Paquette and maybe Mr. Kaplan if they want to speak for the group. We'll get you off mute here in a second. There you go.
Hello, my name is Stacia Paquette. I live at 3820 Birch Street. I'm with the business AB 66 in Dundee. We have a beer garden a beer tent in the event. Years ago, we had the music go till midnight. It was a day event. It was 21 over at night. It was out of control. Since then, new people have taken over. It's none of the people that were involved are involved. We changed it to a family-friendly event. All ages are allowed the whole evening. We have off-duty police officers and security. We're hoping we can get a chance to have the music go until midnight. I don't think we've had any complaints the last few years. It's just we worked really hard for this day, and to give us that extra hour would be very appreciated.
Thank you. I'll come back with a few questions for you, but let me ask, I think you're probably fine speaking for proponents there since these are all together. This is the Dundee Days event for those that may not know. So all these licenses are tied together for that event. Are there any opponents that want to speak today, though? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearings. Sorry? Yeah, I think they're all proponents, actually. Mr. Flores, Bakit, Kaplan, and Shakay, and Ms. Michael. Yeah. So, Ms. Bakit, I want to ask you a few questions that we talked about over the weekend regarding the event. We'll unmute you here again in a second. And my questions are, I mean, it's great to see Dundee Days back. We're excited to do that because it was canceled last year. And you're right, it is a great family event and has developed that way. There was several years ago, though, when there were a few complaints in the neighborhood. I wouldn't say it was overwhelming, but the merchants did a nice job responding to that by changing the format and some of the ways they did the event in subsequent years. And no complaints since. But in those previous years, as you mentioned, that was music stopping at 11 o'clock at night and then midnight close for the serving and for the doors themselves. So this year you're asking to go to midnight for both music and the serving and the doors. And I'm willing to entertain that. I just wanted to make sure we had an exchange about how you're going to ensure there won't be any noise complaints, what you'll do if there are some, and what security measures you have taken this year that might be different, if there are any, from previous years.
I mean, if there's noise complaints, I assume it would go to our head police security. And I mean, it's very simple to just shut it down if there's a bunch of complaints coming in. And we have gates, so you have to go in and out a certain way. It's a pretty contained area. I don't know. What else did you ask? Did I answer everything?
Yeah, I'm happy with that answer in terms of if there are complaints we received that night that we immediately turn it down or look to shut off that music, even though you could stay open until midnight. And I think if there is a year to allow this to try an expansion, I think it probably is this year, especially coming off COVID with this event and the businesses we're trying to support there. I did request you talk to the neighborhood association about that, and you did. I would say there were a few folks that were opposed, but I would say many that were willing to consider it or give it a try. So let's make sure it goes well this year. And if it doesn't, we'll come back and resume the previous format of an earlier shutdown. Does that sound good to you?
Yes, definitely sounds good to me.
Okay, thank you. And for the record, my band does usually play at this event, but we are not playing this year, so that's not part of my consideration on the music timing. Okay, I can't make a motion, but I'm willing to support what was described here today.
I'll make a second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
The public hearings on agenda items number 36 through 45 were held on July 20th. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
The public hearings on agenda items number 46 through 60 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Stork.
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue. I'm basically opposed to particularly the way it's worded. I'm not opposed to the concept. But again, I think it's possibly...
Which item is that?
Excuse me?
Which item?
Oh, I'm sorry, 56. I wonder if it's not the camel's nose under the tent, in that this possibly spread into all the neighborhoods around town, particularly Dundee, where I live. If that's what's behind some of this, I'm opposed, definitely opposed to it. But that's a lot of money, and maybe it's needed, but there's a lot of community partners out there that are supposedly helping take care of some of this problem. So I question $400,000 for specific housing, new housing. Maybe it's the small houses that we hear about. Some of those houses may be on trailers. So I'd like you to wait on this until the public has a chance to learn more about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll close the public hearing now. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
James Mumgard, 646 South 126th Street. I'm here to answer any questions on item number 47, but I did not know you had a Zoom option. I'll make sure to take advantage of that next time.
Yeah, great, and thanks for being here too. Any other comments on these items? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I do just want to recognize item number 50. I'm supportive of all these items, but especially that one, and thank the Public Works Department and the Mayor's Office for their attentiveness on this issue. This was a unusually bad street issue in the Florence area that was impacting a number of sizable employers up there that they were able to help address and will now get corrected and fixed by approving this item. Is there a motion? Second. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 61, a resolution to approve the appointment of Ben Gray to the Omaha Municipal Land Bank Board of Directors as representative for District 2, A's Communications in opposition.
Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Approval.
Second. Motion is second. Are there any further lights? See none. Roll call.
Bagley.
No.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson.
No.
Melton.
Yes.
Palermo.
No.
Rowe.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion failed 4-3.
Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Motion to place on file.
It's done. It's disposed of at this
It
point.
is disposed of,
You're good.
okay.
Yep. Item 62. Item 62, an ordinance to accept the bid from Galls LLC for Omaha Police Department standard uniform items.
Public hearing on number 62 is today. Are there any proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding, what's your light on for that item? Okay, thank you. Next item.
Item 63, an ordinance to approve a 3-year agreement with the Nebraska Humane Society for animal control services for the years 2021-2023.
Public hearing on number 63 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Nancy Hintz, the President and CEO of the Nebraska Humane Society. My address is 8929 Fort Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68134. And to my right,
Steve Glant, Nebraska Humane Society, Vice President of Field Operations, 8929 Fort Street.
so today, the 3-year animal control contract proposal before you does include some increases. And the first increase for the year of 2021 is 18.05%, 10% to be used toward operations, and 8% toward added safety and training expenditures. For the year 2022, the request increase is 4.5%, 2% to be used toward operations, and 2.5% toward added safety and training expenditures. For the year 2023, the increase is 8.4%, 6% to be used toward operations, and 2.5% toward added safety and training expenditures. And the reason why the requests have come forward to you is really since 2015, the Nebraska Humane Society has experienced a funding gap in regard to animal control services. The city of Omaha does comprise and accounts for 82% of animal control services provided based on the number of dispatch calls since 2015, but the city funding has been at a 77% ratio, which was the ratio back in 2014. What's interesting to note is that the Omaha dispatch calls actually rose from 77% in 2014 to 85% in 2015, and then leveled off at 82% from the years of 2016 to present. And we do contribute the uptick in calls in 2015 to increased bat, raccoon, and barking calls. Also, the 2016 and 2019 contract with the City of Omaha and the Nebraska Humane Society was based on the year 2014's 77% city allocation rate. And then in addition, pay for our animal control, dispatch, and licensing departments has really lagged the labor market for the past 7 years, and we would like to increase pay according to market rates. This will help us reduce turnover and associated costs with that. And also, the COVID pandemic and then just the current unemployment rates have really exacerbated this reality for us. We do value our partnership with the City of Omaha in providing quality animal control services, and just ask that you adopt the contract. Thank you so much, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none. Any opponents? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple quick questions, Nancy, if I may.
Yes.
I want to commend you and Stephen on the excellent meeting we had this morning outlining the challenges you're dealing with, and through the process of collective bargaining, you're working with the 19, I believe it is, full-time employees. You mentioned other comparables of cities around us on the pay, that the dignity of work that these folks are doing. That as a former retired sheriff, Stephen, you can certainly attest to the fact that the great work the Humane Society does supporting law enforcement by going out on those calls where we can keep our law enforcement men and women protecting and serving and doing the things they need to do that are important. And I go into the fact that they were underpaid for quite a while, and now through the process you're doing collectively bargaining, I really think it's great that it's recognizing the dignity of work that the people, the men and women at the Humane Society do for our community, and I'm looking forward to giving you support in the years to come. So thanks again for this morning's presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I too want to thank you for being here and for your briefings this morning. And I think oftentimes folks think about the Humane Society and they think about the adoption services, and of course we do too. And my family has been a client in that respect. But oftentimes they don't think about what the majority of your work really is, which is animal control and public safety. And so we appreciate that component of what you do too. I believe you said you had 102,000 calls per year right now, and that's gone up in recent years, and probably as a result of COVID as well.
Yes.
And I was also pleased to hear that I think it's correct to say that although there have been a lot more adoptions during COVID, you have not seen a corresponding increase in surrenders.
That is correct.
I think that's testament too, and I was pleased to hear that as well. So thanks for what you do for the city.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
No further lights. Next item.
Okay, thank you.
Non-action items, items 64 through 82, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and/or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Second. Roll call.
Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Melton. Palermo. Rowe. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 3:13 p.m.